What's up, guys? So this episode, we're going to take a look at fixing a slight bug or usability thing in the Devise gem that I discovered last night. So I created a new Rails app. Let's call it User Manager. We'll just call it something really basic and build the example that we've got here. So Devise has the ability to scope your views. So let's install Devise and take a look at how this works. So if we just add Devise in here and we run bundle to install it, then we can run Rails server. Actually, we need to run Rails generate Devise :install and then Rails generate Devise user. So we actually have Devise models. Now, the views for Devise, like the login and registration pages, are all stored inside the gem. And when you run the Rails G Devise views, it will make a copy of those inside your Rails app so that it can override them, and then it will use your views instead. So that way you can customize them and make them look pretty. But they also provide the ability for you to have multiple folders of those views. So let's say we generated another Devise user called admin user, and we wanted to have different login pages for both of those, and they should look different as well. Well, that's where scoped views come in with Devise. So Devise allows you to edit their config in devise.rb, and you can look for scoped views. Basically, you just turn this to true. And rather than looking for the Devise sessions new, it will look for the user's sessions new template instead. So simply setting that and restarting your Rails server will change the way that that works. And then you can create those views in these folders properly by saying Rails G Devise users. And that will create the users folder and put those in. So you get app views users, and Devise will just know what to do. The problem here is that if you're going to make these scoped views, for example, if we go up here, we did Rails generate Devise user, and this is not plural, and this is actually plural. So what would be nice is if we could put in the non-plural one, and it would automatically pluralize it. And that's what I ran into as a bug, where I did something like this, where I said, Rails G Devise admin user, or something like this, and it actually straight up uses this word as the folder name for the views, whereas the generation for the model automatically converts it to the underscored name and all of that. We should actually have this same functionality in the generate views and allow you just to say, let's type in user or admin user, and we'll automatically convert it to the same thing. Because what happens is when you do this and you get app views admin user, Devise doesn't actually use that. It's still going to look for app views admin underscore users / whatever. So what you would actually need to do is Devise views, admin users, and it just is a little, and it definitely needs to be plural. So it's just a little bit of a gotcha. And it's something that's been around for a couple years, it appears. So if we go to GitHub, we go to the Devise repository. I just created a new issue for it last night and asked basically, hey, saw that other people had this problem. I ran into it again last night, and I was just curious, would it make sense to fix this bug? And Jose, the author of Devise, was like, sounds awesome. So that's what we're going to do in this episode, and that was the background of what happened. So basically, these other people complained about the same thing. It was kind of a hard thing to debug because it's one of those pluralization errors that you run into that just is kind of troublesome. So that is the goal for this episode. We're going to clone Devise, we're going to edit the generator, and we're going to fix that in order to match the same functionality so that you'll be able to type Rails G Devise views admin user or admin underscore user, and it will, in both cases, convert that to the plural admin underscore users for the folder name, as you would expect. And we're going to fix that bug and then submit it up to him to take a look at and hopefully include that in the next release of Devise. So let's get started. All right, so first things first, you're going to want to hit the fork button on Devise, and then you're going to fork their code. You'll have a copy for yourself. You can clone this to your machine, make updates to it, and then send a pull request to Devise to fix that issue. So I'm going to copy this URL down, and we're going to say git clone that URL, and we'll have a copy of Devise that we can play with. Now, the key thing that we're looking for is the generators. So first we want to see how the default generator works. Looks like our lib generators folder is what we're going to look at. And my guess is that the Devise folder is going to have the generators for the Devise commands. So as you'll notice, let's go back over to this one. The Rails app that we just built, we ran Rails generate Devise :install. And so that would invoke the Devise install generator file. And then there's a Devise generator, which will be the default generator, which we use to say things like Rails G Devise admin user. So this is the one that does the magic of converting admin user in camel case into underscores and pluralizing. So let's take a look at that one. So that's this Devise generator. And at a quick glance, there's nothing here hardly. And we do notice that there's Devise for plural name, which if we open up our routes in that app, you'll see that this actually generated what we wanted. It took admin user and made it underscored and pluralized. So this plural name comes from somewhere. It's not defined as a method or anything. So that has to come from either the inherited class or the include. And my guess is going to be in the named base Rails generator inherited class that we used. So let's pull that up and take a look and see what we've got. So here's the plural name method, and the source code for it is extremely simple. It takes a singular name and it pluralizes it, and that's it. There's nothing else to it. Now the thing that we're missing here is that the singular name is not defined anywhere. You can see the singular table name, and that's it, but the singular name, I'm not sure where it comes from. So let's take a look and see if we can find it. There's singular name. So somewhere this attribute singular name is being set as an attribute reader. Maybe it's when this named base gets instantiated or something like that. Somewhere in this code, we could dive into it even more if we wanted to figure out how that's done. But it looks like it's just calling the regular Rails active support pluralize method on the string. So let's just take a look at our views generator now, because this is the one that we need to fix. So the views generator is a good chunk of code here, and this is the piece that we need to figure out how we're going to define whether it goes into the Devise folder or the scoped views. So when we do Rails G Devise views, we want to take the scope here and use that as the folder name after we've converted it. So it looks like this argument scope is what defines this. So this should allow us to go through and take a look at the code and see what we've got. And as you can see here, this target path is actually super useful. So it says target path app views scope or Devise. So if you did pass in a scope, then that means it's going to use admin user. Otherwise, it's going to use Devise. So this actually seems to be perfect. That scope argument is exactly what we're looking for. Now we need to modify this because that is the thing that we're trying to change. Instead of using the scope as it was directly passed in, we want to underscore and pluralize it. And looking at this here, this is just a module and it's not inheriting from named base or anything, so we won't have access to the pluralize thing. And we have some classes for shared views generators, but it's just inheriting from base, not named base, and it's not doing too much. So none of these are really inheriting from something that would give us that plural name method from the other Devise generator. So we may have to build our own plural scope. And also you can see these are all including this view path templates, which is that module we were looking at here. So if we look at how far this goes down, it includes these view directories and target paths. So I think what we can simply do here is we can say, let's make a plural scope method, and our plural scope we will cache to the instance variable, and we'll say this is the scope underscored and pluralize. So then we can change our scope here to plural scope, and that. Let's see where else it is mentioned in this file. So there's scope. Basically, we don't want to change that one because it's just checking to see if the argument exists. So that one's fine. We can leave that. Any other file name references we should change though. So let's look through this file some more. Here's one. This marker B generator. Mark ERB generator is the one that we should also change. And this plural scope will be available because we're including the view templates module in each of these. So that looks like it. There's no other references here, although this one's redefining. Let's see, this is the actual views generator. So it's defining the argument as scope here. And it's also not including the module, but it's invoking the shared views generator. So then this is what you would call when you run Rails Devise views, and that delegates basically to the shared views generator. And then at some point, these other ones will be invoked, I'm guessing. So without having to understand how all of this is connected, we can make that change and we're probably going to be okay. So this is all we changed. We changed this line, we added a new method, and we also changed the plural scope down here. So let's save that and then update our Rails application with the new gem reference. So let's do this and go into the gem file. Change this from gem devise to gem devise, and we'll pass in a path. And this is the path to the Devise code that we just cloned to our machine. So that's where I've saved it. We can close this and run bundle to reference Devise from the folder on our computer instead of the Ruby gem. So now if we were to run Rails generate Devise views admin user, this should use our new code. It shouldn't break, and it should generate the other folder name instead. So let's run this, cross your fingers, and it worked. So this, as you can see, took admin user as a class camel case name and then converted it to the underscore and pluralize version of it and generated all of those accordingly. So that's pretty cool, and that was the only changes we needed to do to make this fix and save a handful of people a little bit of time running into that bug, because last night I thought I was going crazy when it wasn't working, and it was just because I had not pluralized it and wasn't even paying attention. So let's run rake in the Devise folder so that we can run their tests and just make sure that we didn't break anything. So first, to do that, we need to run bundle to install all of the gems for running their tests. And then we can run rake again to make sure that they run correctly. So now our tests will be running for Devise, and we've immediately got a few errors. So that means that we may have broken something, or we need to adjust the tests accordingly to make sure that they handle that new method as well. So let's take a look and see what broke. Okay, undefined method underscore for nil class. So basically we're calling the underscore method on nil, which means that this has happened inside the piece of code we just wrote. So there's some cases where we've called plural scope and scope is nil, and we're trying to underscore nil, and it's not a string, so of course that doesn't work. Now, that throws in some wrenches where we have to make sure that we check to see if there's a scope more often inside of our plural scope method. So let's see what we can do with this. Now, the solution to this without adding a bunch of if statements in there or anything complicated is to use a trick that I think I've shown in the past with the presence method. So let's take a look at how to do this in the terminal real quick, and you'll see what I mean when we talk about this. So imagine your scope is admin user, and we need to check to see if that exists. So if it doesn't exist, we also need this plural method to return nil. So we can do our scope underscore dot pluralize, and that is all fine. But if we set scope to nil, then running that again gives us that error. So how do we go clear this up? Well, we can take this method and we can say scope.presence and scope.underscore.pluralize. And the beauty of this is that when we run this, scope.presence will fail early and it will return nil, and we'll never even try to run the scope underscore pluralize method. And if we go and set scope to a string and it does exist and it is present, then we get the string that we want. So this is a cool hack for you to basically say, let's check to see if the scope is present. And if it is, then we're going to return the pluralize version. And then if it's not present, we're going to return nil. So this is a sweet little trick that you can do to basically remove if statements in your code and just kind of run this in line in a way that's pretty readable. So here we're going to do that, and that should fix our test. So let's clear this and run rake again and see what we get this time around. Cross your fingers and that will fix the bug. And assuming these are, nope, they're in random order, so we can't expect to see the errors immediately. So that seems to have maybe done the trick. Awesome, it did. So that presence check is really cool. Definitely look at the source code for the presence method in Rails. I'll include a link to that in the show notes just so you can take a look at how that works. But it is going to be doing a check to see if it exists behind the scenes, but you don't have to see that in your code, which is part of the beauty of all the methods and helpers that Rails gives you, so that your code can be a little more declarative instead of having to have conditionals like that. So that is the final solution, and let's do a git diff on this to see what we've changed. So we've added plural scope here, we've added the we've changed plural scope there, and we've added the new plural scope method. We have plural scope one more time, and that's it. We haven't made any more changes to it. All of the tests are still passing, and that is all we've got. So here I'm going to make a git commit, and what we're going to do is go back to our original Devise issue, issues 3790. That is going to be the issue that we're going to fix, and we can make our commits and say automatically underscore and pluralize scoped views generator. Fixes number 3790. And so once they merge this commit into the master branch on theirs, then we'll be able to see that ticket automatically get closed. So I'm going to commit that. Actually, of course, you have to do git add to add the file, then you can commit it, and then you can git push up to GitHub, and we'll create a pull request so that we can close this ticket. Okay, so now on GitHub, we can click the green button there to create a pull request, and we're going to take our commit from my branch of master. I should have made a feature branch or a bug fix branch rather than just committing this on master, but we can talk about that in the future. And we're going to submit this to Devise master. So all we have to really do is click create pull request, and just reference this fixes issue number 397. Example is that you can run a bash command. You can say Rails generate devise admin user, Rails generate devise views admin user creates. Actually, we might be able to just grab yep, there we go. We can grab this and show that this will correctly underscores and pluralizes the scope. So we'll do that, and we'll also we'll explain this a little bit better so that other people can see this and how it worked. So we will say example of previous functionality, and this would generates the folder name, and here admin user. This basically just doesn't match up with what Devise expects when rendering the views. Fixed version, and voila. So this is just for anyone else reading this in the future. I think they'll understand if we didn't do all of this, but it's just nice for everybody to take a look at and see those changes and understand like what was actually going wrong when rendering the views, scoped views. Devise will always look for the underscored and pluralized folder name. So this trips up a few people. So that seems good enough. It should be pretty self-explanatory then, and we'll just create the pull request, and hopefully that will all get taken care of. So yeah, that should be that. So this is going to be hopefully fixed in the next version of Devise, and we can have another open source commit on our resume, basically. So if you find any of these things like this in open source projects that you're using that seem unintuitive or something, open an issue and ask if that's intended or if it's broken, and if you can make a pull request for it. So more than likely you'll get a response really fast from the author saying, cool, I'd love for you to fix that. Go ahead and do that. send me a pull request, I'll review it and then merge it in. They're more than happy to help you with that stuff, but it's often good to actually ask to see if they want that to be fixed. Sometimes it's intentional and designed that way, and when you get people making pull requests and you have to turn them down because you don't want to make it work the way they want it to work, that can get kind of frustrating. So be polite, ask for advice and permission. It's not your project, so if you can help them out, then awesome. Do the right thing and find out if they actually want that to be working that way. And yeah, that's it. So hope you enjoyed this episode, and it gives you some insight into some things that you might notice using other gems and be able to patch and fix on your own. And I will talk to you in the next episode. Peace.